Nicole, welcome to the Profit Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. The sun is shining and it's snowy, so what more could I want?
Yeah, it's a snow day, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure how long
It's a
it'll last.
random day in March that it's snowing and it's sunny.
Yep, typical British weather. So we've brought you on today to talk about pre and postnatal topics and how that relates to being a PT.
Yeah.
Before we get into all that good stuff, just give the listeners a bit of an idea of who you are, what you do, and sort of why you found yourself working in this area in particular.
Okay, so I've been a personal trainer for nearly 7 years now. I was lucky enough to start personal training with you two, basically, with Profit. And I believe, working with Profit and alongside professionals like yourself and the rest of the Profit team enamored me, if that's the word. If it isn't, I'm making it up anyway. But it just made me realize what's needed to be a PT and sustain this career. And I'm super, super grateful that I have sustained this career for 7 years. Obviously, I worked at Total Fitness for about 4 years. And was lucky enough to be, pushing out about 120, 130 sessions a month. I'd really built up my personal training business and was training women, men, youngest 14, older 75. Like, it was super, super diverse. And I ran different groups. I was lucky enough to work with different trainers and doing Total Loser and things like that were part of the Profit model at the time. So that was amazing. And then I fell pregnant in 2018. All the years merge into one. So, and so, yeah. And then obviously, as I fell pregnant, I kind of realized and recognized that there wasn't many pre and postnatal PTs, or if there was, they were very much like online based, maybe down south. So there wasn't a lot of women in the north, basically, doing like pre and postnatal training. And I just thought, like, I'd built up confidence and security in my business and what I created and self-belief, but I believed that there was an opening in the market for more pre and postnatal opportunities, and I just decided to go and grab them, and obviously give birth to a child at the same time.
So you're getting the life experience and then going and helping other people going through it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I just thought, again, there's pre and postnatal trainers that are male as well, and they do an amazing job because, like anything, I believe I've like learned how to be a personal and physical trainer, like through experience and learning everything from programming to anatomy and physiology. Like, it's just been a constant learning process for me. I don't believe that I didn't do sports science. Like, I didn't go down that route, but I just learned and absorbed, and I've been able to then deliver that. So obviously, yeah, having had a child, I was able to live what was needed in order to kind of obviously get back to training and lifestyle and etc. But again, I believe that you can be a pre and postnatal specialist whether you're male or female as well. I believe that you can bring different elements to it because dads have children too, and it's, they know what the moms go through. So I think it's important not to just gender it. I think, males and females could both benefit from obtaining like a pre and postnatal certification.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, it can be either gender, can't it? You can be a great coach. You've just got to have that empathy there to want to help people and try and understand what they're going through. So,
100%. Yeah. I think, like, I actually spoke to a PT that I used to work with, Chris Warren, and obviously he has his son, and he got like a whole new level of empathy for parents. I think sometimes it is so easy to be like, yeah, but just do what I say. It'll get you the results. Like, and sometimes it's like, yeah, but I've had 3 hours sleep. And like, I think it's sometimes being in that situation allows you to develop just a different level of empathy and understanding. And then as a coach, it almost rewire you to a degree, become a better coach for those people.
Yeah.
Adaptive coaching.
I also want to draw some attention to what you said in your intro there about 7 years being in the industry is amazing. And, I think it's always worth hammering that home to, especially to new PTs listening that maybe you're a year or two in, that longevity that you've had has come from obviously being very passionate about what you do, being always a sponge in terms of trying to learn more and become better at what you do. And being flexible in your approach, that diversity at the beginning, and now you've really started to narrow into a niche that lights you up. But in the beginning, was it quite like you said, like male, female, young, old, all different types of clients?
I believe you have to do that. I think that as an industry, we need to diversify our experience before we do niche down. I think new trainers coming into the industry, that unless maybe they the background of sports specificness or like they have a particular skill set, I think you're doing a disservice to yourself and the clients that you will serve in the future if you don't diversify your experience and your skill set. I believe that me having had that experience with like teenagers as young as 14, and the things that come with that. And then training, I had this absolute legend client called Kath at Total Fitness, and she was an absolute legend, and she used to walk around the track, and just getting her to move better. Like, I believe you can learn so much from that. So that when I'm coaching moms, I'm like, I want to enable you to still be like Kath when you're older. Do you know what I mean? And like, it just allows you options. But yeah, I do think that sometimes I believe I'm seeing, and I never want to come across from a negative perspective, because that's just not my vibe. But I think sometimes trainers too early on are trying to niche down. And I think unless you've got a specific skill set, I think just like playing around and absorbing and just taking a chance on working with different things will just enarm you with the tools to have a sustainable business. That's why I believe I'm still in the industry.
Wicked. I think that's really good advice for people to hear. So should we get into pre and postnatal? Because I really want to get it stuck into this on this episode.
Let's dive.
It's not a topic we've really covered much before, but I think it's one that comes up for every single PT at some point in their career, and maybe some people who want to specialize in it. So what's the role of a PT in this situation? How does it work working with a client who's pre-postnatal?
I mean, they're two separate entities in themselves, in terms of the way I approach a prenatal client, and obviously one that's going through, the pregnancy journey, compared to someone that's given birth, is totally different. And I am currently working with both. I have a prenatal. I don't have many prenatal clients currently, just because of the way my diary looks, but I've had a lot of prenatal clients, and I've got a current prenatal client that is now 32 weeks. And she started training with me again when she was had just come out like the first trimester. So that's at the end of like 13 weeks. So basically your first trimester is 0 to 13, second trimester is 14 to 26, and third is 27 to 40. So, you can train at any of those times, but let's say you've not trained before and you're new to exercise. I think that the tendency is to train once you've kind of gone through that first trimester window, because again, pregnancy affects everybody differently, and you can feel sick, you can feel tired, a life is developing inside of you alongside you living your own life, so it's pretty tiring. So yeah, I tend to work with clients kind of at any stages they've been working with me, but they tend to come after that first trimester. And in terms of pregnancy, you're not unless you, what's the world's strongest woman? She's an absolute legend, the CrossFit woman who's currently pregnant, and I can't remember her name. But
Yeah.
so she is an athlete. She trains at an athletic level. So, you know, she knows what her body can manage. She's very in tune with that. But I think in respect to myself included, but most of us, you know, if we're not training at that sort of like 5 to 6 hours a week or days a week, then from a pregnancy perspective, when you're training someone, it's just about keeping like optimum movement, strength in the joints. As pregnancy develops, you get the hormone called relaxin, which basically kind of does what it says on the tin. It relaxes kind of the joints and the circuits and stuff to prepare for birth. So you've got to remember that as a coach from a programming perspective. But I like that element, like it tests me, because I have 14 non-specialist clients.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have, you know, 12 specialist clients in terms of it within my niche area. So it tests me to go from programming for the almost non-pre and postnatal sector to then, you know, jumping to that, and what do they need from a programming body movement perspective.
So
does that make sense, or am I rambling?
No, that's perfect.
So
that's perfect. I guess it's helping PTs understand like what sort of things they're looking out for, and maybe how the goals change if you had a pre and postnatal client. It sounds like it's quite different for each person as well. Like it can be really different type of experience when each person gets pregnant. That can be if you're super fit, like the lady you mentioned there, who's the CrossFitter, versus maybe you've never exercised much before. You're going to have a different experience when you go into your workouts and your programming for that.
100%. And that's why I think, you know, I'm definitely in this podcast, like I'm definitely going to give an overview, but it is so personalized. Like that's why it's called personal training. You know, like it is so specific to what the people need. And you know, for example, my current client, you know, that's pregnant, she had a cold so a couple of weeks ago, so obviously felt loads of tension from like a sinus perspective. So I wasn't going to program anything that like had even though, let's say, On All Fours is a good place to be in pregnancy, you can do a lot from a core and strength perspective. That wasn't going to be any good for her when she's kind of got a head cold. So you know, it's on the spot adaptations of what your client needs, but still thinking of what they need to be strong in pregnancy, and then what do they need to be strong postnatally. Another example I'm just going to say is I had a client who was pregnant during lockdown. She ended up having an emergency C-section. No emergency, planned emergency, one of the two.
One of them.
I can't remember now. And anyway, obviously during lockdown, you know, it was difficult and challenging times, and things were going on within the hospitals. And she gave birth in the hospital, and her husband was present during the birth, but he wasn't really able to stay with her that much from that period, just because of the guidelines that they had in place at the time. And basically the mom in question sent me this picture of her newborn son, and she went, Nicole, my son in question says, thank you for making mummy so strong, because I wouldn't have been able to do this if I hadn't trained during pregnancy. Do you know? And that was like, it really touched me, because I was like, whoa, like you don't do it. You do it, but you don't always do it for the impact. But when you're like, through training, through pregnancy and staying strong, she doesn't feel helpless taking. Does that make sense? And I just thought that was like so empowering. And I think, I do believe there's still a lot of fear around training in pregnancy, and will I hurt my baby? Will I hurt myself? Will I pull something? And it's just, we need to be strong. Like, we need, like, do you know, not like we need to be strong, but then we kind of do need to be strong. It's tough. I became a single mom during lockdown, and that were really tough.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to move things sometimes on my own. And if I didn't train, and didn't, I suppose, deadlift, I won't be able to move wardrobes on my own. But I did, you know. But anyway, coming back to training during pregnancy, yeah, it's just, there's this foundation called the Active Pregnancy Foundation, and any PTs or even any women, I recommend that you go and follow them. They are champions about highlighting to mums the opportunities around being active during pregnancy and postnatally, and there's just so many resources on there, and on their platform, and on their website, and on their Instagram. So it's called the Active Pregnancy Foundation, so I definitely recommend to check that out.
I'm just wondering, Nicole, because I think, as Paul sort of mentioned earlier, every PT at some point, if you're around long enough, you come across this situation where you end up with a client that's pregnant along the way. And I think what scares most PTs is doing something wrong. There's probably more runway for them to do things than they realize. But is there anything that a PT absolutely shouldn't be doing with someone that's pregnant? I know that probably depends on what stage of pregnancy they're at, but are there any things that you can give us a bit of guidance as to maybe avoid that, maybe don't do that? Are there any sort of clear things like that, just to at least give trainers a bit more confidence that they're not doing any harm?
Yeah, so, you know, again, from a physical place, so like I said, first trimester, like, baba's still small, you know, like, so you, depending on your client's energy and how they're feeling, so if they're experiencing like crazy morning sickness, you're not going to get them doing burpees, do you know? But again, if they have been training, like, there is another trainer, she's also a pre and postnatal specialist based in Wilmslow, Elise Sands, who worked for Profit, and she's at Wilmslow, and so she did CrossFit, and she trained through her pregnancy because her body was used to that, right? But from a physical adaptation point of view, from programming, that first trimester window, you're only maybe really adapting based on your client's energy that they present in the session.
Right.
And then from almost like second to third, as the physical changes on the mum's body are more prevalent. So from a postural point of view, you're getting into a more lordotic. So, you know, you're getting into a kind of more pressure on that lower back position. Again, your breasts are, you know, changing into that second to third. So upright, you're getting a bit like lordotic and kyphotic here. So all that's changing. So you kind of then got to think of, what am I doing and what am I programming to help that? Again, recommendations from second to third trimester are no lying on your back. So obviously not fully like supine. I'm like supine, no, prone, supine. Yeah. I always have to go bowl of soup like that. Helps me remember. Honestly, 7 years and I still have to go like that. But anyway, it's fine. But yeah, and then obviously prone is a given. You're not going to get a mom lying on a front. You know, if you want them to do, let's say, a press up variation, you would adapt it so you were elevated, you know, on a box. But again, another consideration there is that the women have a lot of pressure now in this abdomen area, and most women will have a form of diastasis, which is a separation of the linea alba. So it's like the just move my computer. It's like the connective tissue that runs through your rectus abdominal sulcus and then your linea albus here. And obviously, as the baby grows, that connective tissue widens, and on some women it can stretch more than others, and that can cause what's called diastasis recti. So again, from a programming perspective, you've got to consider, like, if for example someone's carrying very like low, so lower on the abdomen, like how much are you going to get them in that position that puts a lot of pressure through that linea alba? It's going to have pressure every day anyway, but then you're saying I want you to do 3 sets of 10 press ups and it's just bearing down all the time. So maybe you'd get them to do a seated chest press. So if you still wanted to work the upper body, the arms, because we need strong arms to carry a car seat and a baby, but maybe just again considering what pressure you're putting around the abdomen. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm rambling and now I'm just talking.
No, not at all. That's really good.
What it might mean from almost like your own mentality around this is you might have to step away from what you would normally deem like proper exercise, and then move towards some of the stuff you might normally avoid with your clients. You might be the type of trainer, I know I was like this, where I would never use a chest press machine because, you know, I can get you using dumbbells and barbells and push-ups and using your... But when I did come across pregnant clients, we're definitely using a chest press machine because it's far safer, it's far better. And you have to dump that mentality. So you have to be more flexible with the way that you approach things and just broaden your mind a little bit with opportunities to still work, still train, but be far safer.
Exactly. I think having a mix of, like, I call it more like static kit and body weight and functional aspects, things like TRX. I think, you know, it doesn't all have to be the same. You can keep it still fun for your client, but again, just thinking of, I very much program from like movements rather than like muscles. I think just optimizing just movement patterns enables a female to be overall strong. I don't approach training from like a bodybuilding perspective. That's just not the way I approach it. I know we are bodybuilding, I get that, but from like a back and buys and chest and tries, do you know, like I just approach it from a mum needs to ensure that, you know, I want to balance things out. I want the body to be in a bit more balanced, homeostatic kind of place, you know?
Yeah. I think it comes back to what you said earlier as well, is the goal changes really to the mum having a healthy, happy, strong pregnancy. That's kind of what they want. So your programming has to reflect that, has to be steered towards that. So that might involve exercises that you wouldn't normally put in your programs, but it's the right thing to do for that point in the person's life. So is there any other consideration? You mentioned like relaxing as well there. What about mobility, stretching? Is there any considerations trainers need to think about there?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's like stiffness becomes and again, when I was talking about the changes from, like, say, like a upper thoracic point of view, like, you know, you do get quite stiff, but we don't want to overstretch, because obviously with the body is stretching and accommodating the development of the baby. So, you know, you want to keep things like flowing, should I say, rather than like deep stretching. So thinking, you know, if you're doing let's say like a open book or a thoracic rotation, just keeping that like moving. I recommend mums to be doing that in bed,
right?
You know, kind of just opening, lying on the side and just opening through the range, because again, you're getting your weight distribution is getting pulled forwards. Then you give birth, then you go to obviously feeding, whether you're breast or bottle feeding, and you're here. So like the thoracic rotations is like my number one mobility exercise, because I love it, because I just think it does what it says on the tin. Do you know, like it helps continue to keep that less stiff, basically. But yeah, from an overall stretching mobility point of view, it's just keeping moving. My current prenatal client obviously does, you know, a little bit of mobility with me, predominant strength training, a little bit of heart raiser, cardiovascular, interval things, but again, going at, you know, a 6 to 7 out of 10 RPE. We're not going, you know, absolute hell for leather. I don't want her to be totally breathless, but she can get heart rate up. That's important. She's going to have a little one to, maybe not straight away, but as they grow up, a little one to chase after. So we want to be strong, but we also want to be aerobically fit as well. But again, I've worked with prenatal clients that have had, you know, different things go on. So things, I can't remember the word. SPD, so symphysis, pubis, disorder or dysfunction. Basically, you've got your pelvis. This is my pelvis, hi, and then like in it, you kind of got a connective bit, which is your symphysis pubis, and you can get a lot of pain there as baby grows and bears down, and that can cause a lot of pain, basically, and discomfort for a mum, or a mum to be. So you again need to consider that if someone's going, I just keep getting these like shooting pains in my pelvis, you know, we need to then think from like a unilateral or bilateral perspective, like what's causing them discomfort. If certain movements, again, if you planned a movement, but then the movement causes discomfort, just like it would even if it wasn't a prenatal client. But again, I believe that you have to have a bit more background knowledge from an exercise programming perspective to go, okay, they can't do that, so what can they do? And that's why I think, like, if you're brand new to the industry, you've maybe not gained enough experience from working with different bodies enough to go, that I'll change that for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think, like, because of my experience working with different bodies, and again, you know, yes, I've worked with males before, but I predominantly work with females, so I know the movements. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, we had Ash Grossman on the show not long back, a week or so ago, and he was talking very much about the same thing as well, about knowing the body and knowing how it moves, and training movements rather than exercises is such an important thing. And pre and postnatal sounds like it's, or especially prenatal, is more of an extension of that, because the body's going to move in even more unique way than it normally does. So that you're going to have to know your anatomy, physiology, you're going to have to be well versed in it, and then be able to apply that to something more specific like prenatal. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense what you're saying. And I think that'll help trainers listening to think, well, do I know enough, or do I have to ask for some help here?
Yeah.
When Matt and I were looking at the notes for this, we wanted to get that across, is that don't be afraid of a pre or postnatal client if you're a trainer, but also know when maybe it's time to ask for a bit more help and a bit more guidance. And I think that's probably one of the times.
100%. And but again, I think as physical trainers, as personal trainers, like the education that we receive is great, and you know, we shouldn't have the fear, because I believe then the fear creates this stigma of, oh well, I shouldn't train in pregnant. Like, it almost, it enables that fear to grow when it doesn't need to be. You can train during pregnancy, and a trainer can train you. But I think the trainer has a responsibility to go, okay, like, do I know about pregnancy? If, for example, a trainer is a 22-year-old male that's been in the industry for 2 years, like, I believe to stay, let's say he's trained a woman for a year, she falls pregnant, like, he has a responsibility to just go and do a bit of homework. Whether it's reaching out to someone like myself, reaching out to his educating body and going, you know, we maybe skimmed over it in my certification, but can I, like, because I believe when I did my PT cert, there wasn't a lot on it. I had to go down a lot of different specialist routes to get the education of where I am at now, and I'm still learning, you know. So like, I though again would champion that as PTs we should never stop learning. In the past 7 years of me being in this industry, I reckon I've spent at least £25,000 on education courses. And, you know, like, I don't regret a single one. I mean, I probably would love to own a house, but, you know, it's enabled me to, I don't know, continue to be this specialist with females, and to, yeah, have my self-belief as a coach. So I just think any new PT to the industry that listens to this podcast, like, never stop learning, you know.
Yeah.
And I think even if you maybe don't want to niche down this route, I think at one point in your life you will work with someone who falls pregnant or has just had a baby, and I think if you've got it, it just gives you like a little bit more confidence. I just decided to run with it a bit more and create a full-time business out of it, because I had a child, and I you know, I was able to create flexibility. And I've been in this, not in an arrogant way, but I've been in the industry long enough to go, I can niche down now. Like, I've paid my dues. I've worked from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. Like, I deserve now to create the business that I want to run.
Yeah, we'll go into that in a second, but one more area that I think we wanted to touch on as well is, are there any other things like, you know, nutrition, lifestyle, any other things that you tackle with your clients that would be good for trainers to think about? Any other areas that you really tap into when you got a prenatal client?
Yeah, so pre and postnatal, I think it's just creating accessibility to just nutritional, like, basic guidelines of like, are you I don't think it needs to be over specific unless someone is presenting with, you know, gut health issues, IBS, things like that. Then obviously my nutritional direction is more specific. But I do believe that, you know, I'm not a qualified nutritionist, nor am I a dietitian. So I should only be giving like direction and guidelines and inspiration. But if you then, I know that a few people that I met at like your in-person event might have done the precision nutrition qual, and I've collaborated with more holistic naturopath nutritionists, because I approach things from a holistic point of view, from a nutrition perspective. I believe in like healing the gut, and that'll create better energy inside and then outside. So my nutritional direction is based on that. So I ask women, like, what are you eating? How are you eating? How's your digestion? How are your toilet habits? Do you know, like, and then the nutritional direction goes to that, rather than just eat this, don't eat that, just eat this.
Yeah.
And again, so I don't know if that's a blasé answer, but, you know, of course I'm telling them to eat enough protein to keep the hydration high. One of my champion things is trying to get green in every meal. You know, I think during this winter period when our immune system is being challenged, and when we're just shattered, like, if you can just champion like getting some green in each of your meals, then, you know, all those phytonutrients and all the kind of the good stuff in the green, you're just giving yourself like just a better chance, you know, and you're being a bit more proactive than reactive. You're just proactively just trying to feel a bit better. So that's, I suppose, the nutritional direction that I give for both my prenatals. So like when my prenatal client came into her PT, it's like, how you been doing this week? Like, what have you had for breakfast? And if she's like, oh, I had like a chocolate bar, I'm like, amazing, good. Like, did you enjoy it? Do you know? But I want to make sure that she is, you know, eating enough like meat or fish if she's not vegetarian, eating enough whole foods, basically. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah, it does. One thing I wanted to nip back to quickly, because I know we did it in a good bit of detail for prenatal, but when it comes to exercise postnatal, like how soon, I know it'll probably depend on whether it's C-section or not.
Yeah.
And then what does it generally look like when you return as well? Again, if a client has worked with you during pregnancy and then wants to come back after,
yeah,
what might a trainer need to be aware of in terms of timings and stuff?
Yeah, so like you said, regarding the type of birth they've had, whether it's you know, a C-section, obviously C-section is it's a surgery, you know, you're cutting through many levels of skin and fascia. And so the return to exercise from a C-section is longer than if you've had a vaginal birth. But again, it's the type, it really is the type of birth. There are a lot of different birthing options, and that's probably a whole other podcast in itself. But yeah, it's, you know, kind of that 0 to 6 week period, I really believe is about nourishing you and your relationship with your new baby. And if you're a mom of more than one, you're navigating a whole different dynamic for your family. So, you know, in that 0 to 6 week period, maybe doing some gentle stretching if you're stiff, if you're getting used to your feeding postures, things like thoracic rotations, cat-cow, you know, just like stretching from here, just anything that just enables you to not feel like stiff and be holding your muscles. Again, I often find that moms have really overworked traps from just like holding all the tension of just what they've kind of just gone through. But yeah, 0 to 6 weeks, nourishing yourself. Sleep is absolute lols, because that's something that we can't control with a newborn. But I do believe it is more challenging being a mom here in the UK. And I'm being honest, we almost have our children and then we kind of got to crack on. You know, sometimes the setup isn't really from a work perspective, or maybe a paternity leave perspective, or just the dynamics are challenging. So adding in exercise to that mix, like, I believe it just needs to be a little bit more holistic and a little bit more nourishing, unless you've been training at such an intense level and you're like, I'm cool, I'm feeling okay, like, I've got no pelvic floor dysfunction, I'm ready to crack on. Like, you as the individual have to know that. But yeah, I think most of us need to just like go through a nourishing period of like healing from food, healing from movement, and then go kind of gentle walking, stretching, body weight, banded, dumbbells, barbells, and just like the natural progression that you kind of go through if you were taking someone that had maybe not trained before. And there was just getting used to like moving their body again and reconnecting with their body, because you imagine you've got a 9-month period of your body going through a whole physical change, and then you're like, whoa, I've not seen you like this in a while. Like, do you know? So then you've kind of got to reconnect to your breathing patterns and that breath and core connection if you then want to lift again, to not cause extra pressure on the pelvic floor. So there's quite a lot of considerations, and I think that's why I obviously created what I've created with Barbells and Babies, is it's like a foundational strength plan for mums to go. Obviously, you know, like a house, it lays the foundations, we lay the groundwork, we start putting in the walls, and then we build it up to ensuring that you can press overhead and you can deadlift without leaking and things like that.
Yeah, that was, I'm glad you said that about it's such a massive change in somebody's life, and a physical trauma, an emotional trauma, and not sleeping. And, you know, even as a dad, which is nowhere near the same level as a mum going through that, by the way, I felt that myself. When you have kids, you kind of lose yourself for quite a long period of time. And, you know, if you're maybe on social media and looking at, I'm a new mum back to working out in the gym 2 days after my pregnancy, which people will see, your expectation could be that you know the client's got to get back on it straight away, and it's just not the case for probably the majority of mums. Most of them are going to be, that nourishing period you mentioned is going to be so important, and the pace of it, getting back into things. Yeah, I think that was really important to mention.
I think you've also got to remember, as I don't know, as the specialist in this area, I know that sometimes people come to work out and like maybe want to feel like they've worked out in terms of, I want to get sweaty, I want to feel like I've done a good session, like, and I almost need to like not re-educate, because there's nothing wrong with that intention, and I believe we all kind of want to feel that way, that euphoric feeling from having had a good session, and I'm gonna give you that. But you've also just been through 9 months of physical change, and I need to ensure that you can breathe, you feel how your breath empowers you through movement. If I don't give you that, I'm doing my job wrong as a pre and postnatal specialist. I will get you to lift. And I said, like, I had a recent postnatal mom that was like, I want to go running. And I was like, no. And I was just like, not yet. So I said, like, no, being cheeky.
I was going to say, did you say it like that?
Yeah.
No.
I was like, no. But I was obviously my cheeky self, but I was like, no, we're almost gonna work you. And it is, and again, I can share this, you know, I can send you some things if you want to share them, share links on the podcast. But like, there is a return to running postpartum guidelines, because running is amazing. It can be such a mindful space and great for physical options. But a lot of us, you know, if we're mostly sat down for a while, like, our gait is a bit off, our biodynamics are a bit off, the impact on our ankles, on our knees, on our joints. So then to be like, okay, I'm newly postnatal, I'm going to go for a jog at 4 weeks, like, it just, unless you've been training, I believe, at a specific, like, high level, like Jessica Ennis or this CrossFit lady or someone like that, your body just isn't used to that. And I think we need to respect the body and lay the foundations first in order to just build up that strength. Because I want you to run for the next 30 years. So you're going to wait a little bit, and I'm going to lay the foundations so that you can run forever, not just run because, to a degree, people associate maybe getting in the increase in cardio to losing weight and things like that. And it's like, I get that and I respect that, but I also want you to be strong, well. So yeah, there you go.
What a brilliant little change in the reframe you used there. Instead of it being like, stop doing this to the client, you say, I want you to run for the rest of your life, so let's do this the right way. Then it shows them you're on their side.
100%. And I say to them, look, I'm still a work in progress. I'm not the strongest and fittest mom I want to be yet, but I'm getting there. I'm evolving all the time through my professional life, through what I'm navigating. But like, I don't want my body to stop me living like life and experiences with Maya. Like, I want to physically be able to be like, Mummy, come on the monkey bars with me. And I'm like, okay. And I can do it. Do you know? And like, oh, Mummy, run up this hill. And I'm not like, oh my God. Do you know? I want to be able to do that with her. And I think if I can, I don't know if I'm making this word up, but if I can enamor women and mums to want that alongside the body composition changes, if I can want them to want that for themselves, I'm changing the world. Hey.
Well, I think people have learned all about postnatal training and like a word of the day education as well today with is it enama?
Yeah, is it enama? Why do I say enama?
Enama, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a word. Yeah.
I think it's a word, but I mean, I think it means like enable, doesn't it? I'm giving, well, enama, I'm armoring them.
Enamored. Someone messages and let us know.
Someone Google that. Comment below.
So tell us about the groups that you're running now. Is it barbells and babies? Is that the title of the
barbells and babies? That's what it says on the tin. I mean, it should probably be back to front, like have a baby, start lifting a barbell. But right. You know, barbells and babies has a better ring to it. And then hold on. Again, be stronger is what it says on the tin. So like my tagline is be stronger, be fitter, be healthier. And I really share and sell these programs as opportunities for mum to move in a community aspect. You know, I believe that together we're stronger. And if I can bring women together exercising, then that's super empowering. But yeah, obviously I fell pregnant in 2018. And then I moved from like Preston to Wigan with my daughter's dad, and I didn't know anybody. So I set up community groups because that's just who I am. And then on the back of that, I was like, well, I'm certified in pre and postnatal training. So let's set up some mama baby groups. And in the beginning, I was doing them from like libraries, like around books. Don't know, that was a health and safety nightmare, but let's just not think about that now. And then it grew, and then it, you know, I started going into gyms, and then I've worked at a few gyms doing the kind of mums bringing the babies to the gym. And then I was lucky enough to find something closer to home. So now I work from a gym called Transform in Wigan, and I've been there for the past year. And I'm so grateful of the opportunities that I have there. Thanks, Greg. Little shout out. But yeah, I'm enabled to do, like, he had that belief that these groups would do well. Because that's like a big ask on a semi-commercial property. Like, I've got these, let me like launch these groups, even though you don't really know what they are, but I'm going to show you that they're going to be successful. And I've been running them for about 3 years in general, but obviously 1 year at Transform, and every group is sold out.
Wow. I think it's really good for people to hear. First of all, when you describe it, it's a really clear concept that's easy to understand. When you talked about the product itself and the groups, yeah. And if you're a trainer listening to this, you've got to come up with that concept has to be crystal clear. Like, who is it you're trying to help? What is it you're trying to help them with? And how are you going to do that? Yeah. And that was really obvious when you described it there. It was like, oh yeah, you're passionate about it. That shows, because you can sell it to somebody who probably wouldn't normally go for that idea, and you can make it work. And that's really exciting. And it's all full.
Yeah. And that, I mean, you know, you have to, like anything. I remember in Profit, you know, one of the tools that we learn is, you know, you're running a business, like, and again, I'm still, obviously Matt is my mentor. I'm still developing as a business owner and looking at sectors. As a business, you're always improving your sectors and your strategies and your systems. But like, I am obviously very passionate about helping people, but then the marketing, I was pants. Do you know, like, once they're in with me, they stay because I'm helping them. But like, getting in front of people wasn't my, like, I wasn't great at it. So obviously I now work with an incredible girl, Anna, shout out, who helps me with my social media and has made increase my presence online, because that was needed, because we live in that day and age. It's not like a lot of coffee meetings and, you know, baby weighing clinics aren't that much around anymore, sadly, just with the challenges that are going on within the NHS right now. Do you know, so opportunities for me to get in front of loads of mums just from a like flyer perspective has changed. So I do have to be more, I do have to think and consider about being more online and the marketing options with that. But it is a challenge. I'm a very, very busy self-employed single mom. Like it's super, it isn't easy, but the pros outweigh the cons for me in terms of being a self-employed single mom. Like it is hard, but I'd much rather love my job than and it be challenging than wake up every day and hate it.
Brilliant. And you're obviously setting an example to your daughter as well, growing up, seeing her mum working this hard and killing it.
Yes.
I'm gutted she hasn't appeared. I'm gutted she hasn't turned up at some point. I was banking.
No, I mean I could shout her. She might like, bless her. She's playing downstairs, which is good. FYI, I don't normally leave my child unattended for an hour, but she's cool. She's fun. There's no things like that she can hurt herself with. So yeah. But yeah, I love my groups. And again, Matt and I have talked about this. Like, I believe, you know, I, again, bring in attention. I'm not like, oh, here's my violin, I'm a single mom. But obviously being a single mom comes with its different challenges. Again, my daughter has a very present dad, which I'm super grateful for. But in terms of the demands of the childcare organizer, a lot does fall on me. So I have to navigate that. So I had to look at income opportunities that would support me navigating this different period of my life. So all I'm saying is if you're let's say you're getting into this industry and you're 35 with 2 kids, but you don't want to not be home for your kids all the time, there are so many opportunities of income. Like it just doesn't have to be one-to-one PT. It doesn't just have to be online coaching. Like this industry can be whatever you want it to be, but you have to work at it.
Brilliant. I think that's a really good point to wrap up today. We've done nearly an hour. I didn't realize that until I look at the clock, and then time flies.
Absolute rambler over here. Sorry.
I think it's all been really useful. I don't think there's been any ramble at all. For people who want to find where you are and what you do, and maybe ask more questions about pre and postnatal training, where can they find you?
So on my Instagram, which is, hold on a moment, I'm pretty sure it's Nicole Messham _PPN, but I'm just going to check. Don't want to send people to the wrong one. Yeah, so it's Nicole Messham, so NICOLE MESSHAM _PPN, so pre and postnatal specialist. And yeah, obviously anybody, whether they're a mum, whether they're a trainer with specific advice, like if I don't know it, I'll find it out for you. But you know, I would hope that I would give some sort of guidance and direction. And again, Active Pregnancy Foundation for women that are pre and postnatal, great resource. Vector Training is where I did my pre and postnatal in person. So I actually already had an online certification, but I wanted even more in-person stuff. I believe I love in-person stuff. So Vector Training, I did my pre and postnatal cert with them. I know they have one coming up soon. So yeah, I would definitely recommend them if you're thinking about adding that cert on. Awesome. Yeah. Nick, thanks very much for today. Thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. And we'll let you get back to your little daughter. And thank you. We might have you again on soon. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you later.
See you later. Bye.